I signed up to the very first half marathon of my life with just 4 weeks to train. And I had no idea that when I was signing up, that I actually learned such valuable lessons that would completely shift the way I operate as a human being and also the way I look at business as an entrepreneur. So in today's video, I'm going to actually break down 10 lessons that I learned from this half marathon training and how it translates into the world of entrepreneurship. So with that being said, let's dive into lesson number 1. So lesson number 1 for me was just trusting myself, because the backstory of this half marathon was I wasn't even considering to do one. My friend out of the blue just texted me and asked, "Hey, do you want to run a half marathon with me and my brother?" And I just didn't think much of it. And I said, yes. And this taught me that I actually trust myself enough to go into uncomfortable situations and to know that I will figure it out. The thing is, oftentimes, if you delay and if you try to do this entire pros and cons, should I do this or should I not do this? You have this analysis paralysis. And next thing you know, you've allowed fear, insecurities, and doubts to creep in, and you're going to actually talk yourself out of it. The key is to be fast, to say yes when it just feels right in your gut. And for me, running a half marathon really did feel like, okay, this is something I would want to do. This is where, you build up a lot of confidence in your life, because me just saying yes to a half marathon didn't happen at that split second. It was all those small wins that I had stacked up throughout my life, because I have run before. I've never run a long distance. I've run 3.25 miles, which is a 5K. And I was telling myself, well, if I can do a 5K, I could probably do a half marathon. And so during the training period, when I did the first run with my friends, I think we did like a 5K, and I was like, okay, I've done it before. I can definitely do it again. Then we did a 10K, and I was like, okay, cool, not bad. But a little part of me was still freaking out. And I was like, you know what? Can I actually do a half marathon? It still seems such a long time. Like, will my cardio and endurance stay with me throughout this entire journey? And one day I decided to just do an 11-mile run. And that was the day I started to believe in myself for real. And I was like, you know what? If I can do 11 miles, that means I can make it through 2 more miles and do this half marathon. And a lot of this really just translate into business, which is like you have to trust your instincts and make decisive moves without overthinking. Because oftentimes I've also caught myself, overthinking even the little things. And the biggest takeaway for me was say yes to things when it feels right in your gut. Because if it's a hell yes or if it's a hell no. If it's a hell yes, don't allow time to create more fears and doubts. You don't have to figure out all the how I'm going to do this, how am I going to train, what kind of shoes do I need, what kind of tools will I need. Forget that. You can figure that out on your way towards the destination. Just get started on the journey first. Don't think, just do it. Speed overcomes fear. More you delay, more fear builds. And I feel like a lot of businesses have been killed because of fear, because you're sitting still and there's 1, 2, 3 crucial things you need to act on, and you're not acting on it. I would say trust yourself. And for me, lesson number 2 was the initial struggle. I will not lie. The first week of training was tough because I hadn't run consistently for like many years. My cardio was kind of crap. I remember the first morning we went out to train. It was Saturday, 8 a.m. And I was like, why the heck am I doing this? I could be comfy in my bed, sleeping. But why am I running over here and panting like a dog? My mind wanted to give up. My mind was starting to say like, oh, it's a lot. Take it easy. Maybe tell the guys to slow the pace down. And so that's the initial struggle, right? And I realized that the hardest part is always at the beginning. That's when you're trying to just get out of that comfort zone. That's when your mind wants you to give up. So for me, it was just realizing that the battle is won or lost in those early stages. It's just when you're starting to just warm up, open up, that's when you want to give up, or at least your mind wants to give up. And in business, the initial stage is always the hardest. I remember when I was first trying to validate my offer, doing cold outreach, trying to just nail down the ideal avatar for my offer and building the foundations of Rapid Bookings. Dude, that was the hardest days, right? And that's when you have a lot of the doubt and fears also start creeping in. That's when the voice comes in and says, you know what, maybe this is not what you should be doing. Maybe there's an easier path. And so you have to actually push through that initial struggle in order to win. And you're going to realize this, no matter how successful you are, no matter how good you get, that initial struggle will always be there when you start something new or even do something that you've always done again on a fresh, brand new day. Embrace the suck. Everybody literally goes through it. Even the marathon runner that's been running for years and they're like the world champion, I probably assume that they're even going through the first mile or 2 or 3 miles of suck. But they trust themselves enough to kind of push through that initial suck. So again, everybody has to push through this, but not everyone will. The people that do, they become champions. And I hope you are one of those and you become a champion. Now, lesson number 3 is identity over goals. For me, look, this half marathon did not mean anything. Like, I'm not trying to be a professional runner. I am not an athlete, none of that stuff. I do fitness because it brings me a lot of joy. But again, what does this half marathon have to do with me? Nothing. It was not part of my life. It was not part of my goal. But my mindset definitely shifted during the training because it wasn't just about completing the half marathon anymore. It became more about embracing the identity of a winner, of a champion. Because when I was trying to push through the initial struggle, like I just said in the previous lesson, I was telling myself, like, look, what kind of person will I be if I give up now? If I cannot run a few miles, how will I actually achieve great things in my life? If I cannot go through a little bit of physical discomfort, the knees hurting, the ankles aching, the bottom of my foot feeling like it's on fire, if I cannot just go through that for a couple of hours, then how the heck am I supposed to build and achieve great things? So for me, it became a game of identity. If I give up now, I'm going to live the rest of my life as a loser. And I'm going to keep building that momentum towards the identity of a loser rather than the identity of a winner. And so this experience really taught me that it's not just about achieving a specific goal, but it's reinforcing the identity I personally want to embody. And this confidence I gained from this success spills over into other areas of my life. And like I told you before, the half marathon means nothing to me, but the act of finishing what I started and doing a good job means the world to me. And this might sound pretty crazy, might sound morbid, or you might just realize this is just Stoic philosophy. I was ready to die if needed. I told myself, like, look, if I cannot finish these few miles, I'm going to die trying. No matter what, I am not stopping until my goal has been accomplished. Now, in business, I also focus on building the identity of this relentless person rather than just chasing outcomes. And this mindset really helps me tackle challenges with confidence, and I get shit done no matter what. I keep moving, I keep marching forward, do or die. So at the end of the day, it's not the miles that matters. It's not the revenue goals that matter. It's you finishing what you said you were going to start, right? It's you accomplishing that thing and feeling that sense of satisfaction within yourself. It's all internal at the end of the day, right? That little medal that you get, I mean, come on, what are you going to do with it? And oftentimes in business, we also get all these little medals, maybe the car, maybe the home, the revenue targets, right? But at the end of the day, that's not the stuff that counts. It's that internal shift. It's that internal sense of accomplishment that really matters. So my kind of takeaway would be, who do you want to be? Wins and losses spill over to all parts of your life. So at the end of the day, it's all about identity. So make sure you're building the proper identity. Lesson number 4 for me was learning from those ahead of you. And again, this is a very simple lesson, but oftentimes we forget this in life. I, for this half marathon, surrounded myself with people that have already done it before. And really, like, surrounding myself with people who've already accomplished what I'm trying to do boosted my confidence, because I was like, if he can do it, I can definitely do it. And in business, This is obvious, but I try to seek out coaches and align myself with experienced entrepreneurs. Like the saying, you see far by standing on the shoulders of giants. So I definitely acknowledge that I don't know everything when it comes to business, entrepreneurship, marketing, sales. I obviously cannot. And this is why I try to fill my gaps. So that's going to be a key takeaway. But I also want to say the lonely solo journey sucks. I don't think I could have done this entire half marathon training by myself, because when I tried to run by myself, I would actually stop after a few miles, walk, and then start again. But when I ran with the group, I didn't stop once. So takeaway is surround yourself with people who've already done what you want to do. It will increase your belief. And it gives you a lot of momentum because you're actually borrowing the momentum of the group. So it's a quick, easy hack. Lesson number 5 was resetting my baseline. I mentally compared myself to people that are doing ultra marathons and full marathons. Like, I wasn't comparing myself to the person that was a couch potato or people that just can barely run a mile or they somehow accomplished a 5K run. I don't know why, but naturally I was thinking about people like, oh my gosh, people run in like 100-degree Fahrenheit weather in the Arizona desert, doing some crazy ultra marathon races. This is just 13 miles. Easy peasy. Cakewalk. Even a child could do it. That was my entire mindset through the training. And I think if I would have compared myself to people that just barely run or just do 1 or 2 miles, then 10 miles would have seemed like a big, huge deal. But because I was comparing it to a 100-mile race, 10 miles, 12 miles, 13 miles seemed like child's play. And I think that's where this becomes kind of a hack, right? Because you want to compare yourself to people that are like way, way ahead of you. And so in business, I also feel like I naturally set high standards and compare myself to like top performers. I'm thinking of people like Bezos, right? Elon. I'm not thinking about another person that's kind of doing a few 100K more than me. And so this always pushes me to achieve more and helps me see my current challenges as more manageable. It makes it seem like bite-sized, like, oh, there's people out there that are doing like 100 times as this. Why can I not? So in business, don't compare yourself to people making 30K per month. Compare yourself to making 300K per month. And if you're at 300K per month, compare yourself to people that are making 3 million per month. This keeps it fun. And you realize that, you know what, I haven't done shit. And this should be so easy. Takeaway would be wise about who you compare yourself to. Do not ever compare yourself to your old self. Sure, you can look back at who you used to be 5 to 10 years ago and have a lot of gratitude for what you have today. But you should definitely be comparing yourself to some of the top performers, people that are doing 10 times as you. And that will increase, again, a lot of belief and a lot of momentum. It'll also reduce any freaking ego that you have and let you know that, you know what, buddy, you haven't done shit. It's time to get up and take some more action. Lesson number 6, mind over body. So during training, I discovered that my mind was ready to give up long before my body actually needed to. I talked about this during the initial struggle phase in an earlier lesson right here, but it comes back up again. The mind never gives up. It will come back again after a few miles and say, you know what? Oh, you've been running for a little while. Maybe you're dehydrated. Maybe you should take a break. All of that stuff. That nagging voice inside your head never, ever stops. It is probably the most relentless thing that's on autopilot, always trying to weigh you down, break you down, all of that stuff, right? And again, you have to muster up, again, a lot of courage, a lot of discipline to push through and to shut that voice down. And I learned that the mind often quits before the body does. And this let me know that I have to actually push past my mental limits and achieve what I thought was impossible. Sometimes focusing on something totally different helped me get out of my mind, regain my breath, and get back into the game. So it's the same thing in business. Oftentimes, people panic before something bad even really happens. Like, how many times have you or another entrepreneur that you know have started to freak out, like, oh, ads aren't working, the sales team is down, oh my gosh, the business is gonna like crap this month, it's all gonna go to crap. Like, think about it. Why are you freaking out? What data do you have that things are actually breaking down? And if it is actually breaking down, why don't you trust yourself to fix it? So again, this mind sometimes can be our best weapon. It can also be our worst enemy to ourselves. And that takeaway for me was all pain or pleasure originates in your mind. If you're alive, all is well. And you can control your thoughts and try to create pain or pleasure, however you choose your thoughts. And that's the crazy part. The demons are all in your mind. The angels are also all in your mind. So control your mind, and then you will control your body. And if you're controlling your body, of course, you're going to control your future. Lesson number 7, investing in the right tools. So having the right gear, like shoes, clothing, hydration tools, made my training and race days so much easier, more enjoyable. And I never even realized this, that there were so many different types of running shoes. It's not just a running shoe. There's cushion, there's like bounce, there's responsiveness, there's lightweight, all of this stuff that actually goes into it. And you only realize it when you start taking a sport seriously. And it's also this principle of don't just brute force it, because I had running shoes and they sucked. I tried running with it and it literally felt like my legs were gonna fall off. And then I splurged on some nice shoes. It was $200, but when I ran with it, it felt amazing. My body thanked me for it. So this goes to show that when you invest in the right tools, it makes the life in your job so much easier. And this also translates to business, of course, right? Investing in the right mentors, the right tools, the right teams, the right systems makes it so much more easier, more fun, and more enjoyable. And takeaway would be, don't be penny wise and pound foolish. And there's no pride in unnecessary pain. Like I often see this in like business people, and it's just like, dude, what are you doing? Just invest. Why are you being a cheap ass? And lesson number 8 would be breaking through limits. Here's the crazy part. What I thought was my limit in terms of running was simply my warm-up. When I actually got through that initial struggle, and my initial struggle lasted for 5 miles or roughly 45 minutes, I actually opened up. My lungs opened up. My legs felt lighter. I felt like I could fly. Legit. I always found myself that I'm speeding up after that initial 5 miles. And I actually got into a nice rhythm. And I just couldn't stop moving. And I just got faster and faster and faster. So much faster that I would actually leave my training group behind and I would start going way ahead of them. And so this taught me that, you know what, I'm actually capable of doing so much more than I initially thought I was. And if I didn't push through that initial struggle, I wouldn't have unlocked and unleashed this new level. And the sad part would have been, I would have never known that I was even capable of doing such things. So in business, it's also kind of important to push through that initial discomfort and keep going, as that's when you can probably find your true growth potential. Momentum unlocks a new level. And this also relates to sales, right? The first, let's say 5 sales of the month, this is where you're just getting that momentum. You're just getting warmed up. And then you can do so much more because you're like stacking up those wins. And the next thing you know, you can probably double or triple what you were doing last week. So takeaway would be change your mindset. Stop looking at your current limit as like, this is my pretty much my ceiling and I cannot break past it. And instead look at it as your warm up, because you can actually do so much more. Lesson number 9, the champion feeling. Listen, my friend, finishing a training session felt incredible. It felt like I just won $1 million. And doing what I said I would do made me feel like a champion, and I started to crave that feeling over and over again. That's what made this entire training session for a half marathon so addictive. And I always did one extra mile, one extra rep, right? All of that stuff. And the end feeling makes all the hard work worth it. It's creating that positive feedback loop in my mind that motivates me to keep setting and achieving goals. Because I would go through this cycle of pain, that initial struggle that I talked about, then I would accomplish it, and that was victory. And then I would have that champion feeling. And in order for me to go through the champion feeling again, I would have to start right back here again. And that let me know, like, it's all good. It's all good. Because when I finish, I'm going to get this champion feeling again. This, I mean, you can take away this into any aspect of business. When you first start running ads, you're going to lose money. Day one, you probably aren't making money, right? And then you start actually making money on day 2, day 3, day 4. And then you get that champion feeling. Then you realize, you know what, it's totally fine, because that initial scaredness and that initial fear of losing money, it's all good. I'm actually going to get it all back. And in business, achieving my goals creates a similar feeling, which fuels my desire to keep pushing forward and setting newer, bigger goals. The first sale of the month, the record-breaking quarter, it's a champion feeling. It's not the money. I said this before in this video. We're not doing all of these things because we want to just rack up miles or look at all the trophies and medals. Those things, sure, might be great, but it's the internal feeling. That's what makes you feel like $1 million, whether you have $1 million in your bank account or not. And so the takeaway is the feeling of winning makes it all worth it. And that's the true drug to crave. Because once you've got a taste of winning, my gosh, you cannot have enough. You want more and more. And lesson number 10, the right influences matter. I was fortunate enough to be friends with this group, and they invited me, because otherwise I would have never done a half marathon. It simply wasn't on my radar. I probably wouldn't have even thought about it in my entire life. But if I didn't, then I wouldn't have learned all these lessons. I wouldn't have unlocked a new version of me. And that would have really sucked. So this taught me the importance of having the right friends or influences in my life, as they can definitely introduce me to new opportunities. They can open up new horizons. And kind of the saying that I've created out of this is have expanded friends and expand your life. In business, surrounding myself with the right people and influences opens doors to new opportunities and experiences that I might not have considered on my own. So takeaway would be, who's influencing you and how are you influencing them, So this was my entire journey in a nutshell, 10 valuable lessons. It was incredible. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.